All right, the time is 5:01. Our special workshop meeting is in session at this time, and we'll go ahead and open it up for discussion on item number one, workshop on the National League of Cities membership. Councilmember Hayward.
Thank you, Tim. Uh, 1 second. So I kind of think I wanted to bring it forth because I think we need to be members of National League of Cities. It is TML kind of on steroids a little bit. It's more of a national delegation, and it was created probably 100 years ago, and Texas was one of the founding states. And so it's an organization that comprises of cities, towns, and village leaders focused on improving quality of life for current and future constituents. They serve as resources and advocates for municipal leaders across the country. It's committed to helping advance critical funding, programs, resources for communities of all size. They were the ones that actually worked to get the ARPA funding, which was $65 billion, so they were responsible for kind of getting that for our cities. A couple of things is if we become members, there are 4 things that we get benefits right away. So one of the benefits is grant finding, so they quickly identify grants that will be most appropriate for our city and they streamline the application process with pre-awarding planning tools and reports. They usually this is one of NLC's trusted strategic partners designed to support the needs of the municipalities and residents and trying to bring positive savings and solutions to our communities. They also have national events. One of the things as a TML president-elect, I attended the TML delegation in DC because they have one usually in DC and one, that's usually called a summit, and then they have a conference. And in the summit, what they do is we get to have like one-on-one meetings up in Austin with our senators. They come in, we get one-on-one meetings, even with your representatives, you get to meet with them one-on-one and have meetings with them and talk about what Texas needs. And they focus on that, so they try to get you, that is part of one of those. They also do the national, like I said, they do national events. They try to pair people with peers from across the country with policy experts, industry professionals to gain knowledge, expand the network, and leave with resources you need to help your municipality thrive. When I did the one in DC, they actually had the departments of, I'm trying to think of all the departments. The ag department, they had transportation, and all the different departments that they have in DC, they had them at the hotel right where we are so that you can you could set a meeting, go in and talk to them about different things. And that's where I found out about the transportation. They were giving grants for railroad crossings, and so you could get money to fix railroad crossings, you could get grant money for building bridges or underpasses with railroad, with the trains, with the railroads, so that it could be better for your city. So they give things like that, and they help get you to those places, like they said, with the grant people and identifying what works with us. And so that was a good thing. And then they have committees, so you can be on a committee with NLC. They have the councils, and they have contingency groups. One of the benefits that they also do is they have access to different programs, training, technical assistance, national conferences. We can use their being memberships, we can divide up as different teams and use certain different resources, or we could all focus on one resource for our benefit. And I just think that being part of that and being able to bring some of our tax dollars home because of the grants, and I know several cities around who have had the opportunity to work with National League of Cities and get grant money for infrastructure funding. And so they really try to work with you to make sure that you're bringing your tax dollars home. And I think the membership is only like about $5,000. And so I think it might be something that's well worth us being a member and looking into it so that we can kind of help our cities and bring some of our federal dollars back into the area.
Council? I'd like to say a few things. You know, being a member of the National League of Cities does require membership fees, as Councilmember Hayward stated. But council just increased the tax rate on our constituents. Committing to a new membership is a burden on the taxpayer. New programs and new memberships should be discussed during the budget process. This is where we can commit long-term to being a member of the National League of Cities, because I don't think we will have too much influence within 1 year. It would require a certain amount of time. Also, as a small city, we don't face the same challenges or have the same resources as larger municipalities. Large municipalities may benefit more at a national level. Many have airports, mass transit, railroad stations, subways, universities, and other facilities that provide social and medical assistance. Our city should focus its efforts on advocating at a state level rather than joining the National League of Cities. By concentrating at the state level, partnerships and organizations, we can assure that our unique needs and priorities are addressed more effectively. This approach will allow us to have a stronger and more targeted voice in shaping policies that directly impact our community and our city. That's why I think it's not advisable or in our best interests to be a member of the National League of Cities at this point. Like I said, we should be focusing at the local level with the Northeast partnerships, at the county level and at the state level, because they understand what we're going through. They understand exactly our locations and our challenges more than at the national level. When you're looking at thousands of cities in different states. So that is my point of view on this. Okay, Councilmember Brown.
Oh, I certainly agree on the budgetary process there, that it needs to be put into the budget versus after the fact, because it's also going to entail some travel money and things along that line, not just a membership fee. But I would like to hear more from cities that are actively involved in this, to see if they have any success stories, input for that before we make our own decision. And I'm sure that Councilwoman Hayward has got good contacts, you know, that she's made, and otherwise she wouldn't have brought it up. But for the rest of us that aren't familiar with it that much, I'd like to hear some more feedback on it.
I will comment. I'll accept responsibility, because the issue was brought up before the budget was adopted, and we were waiting to get it onto a council workshop agenda. So as far as timing goes, the issue was brought up prior to the budget being adopted.
Okay.
Just sorry.
That's
Just
okay.
wanted to clarify that. That's my fault.
Councilmember Hayward.
It's not just large cities in this. I can tell you Live Oak is a member of NLC. I can tell you that New Braunfels is a member of NLC. I can tell you about people that I've talked to. Waco is a member of NLC. Waco got $180,000 for road infrastructure project. New Braunfels received, I want to say, about the same for a road infrastructure project. And there is some travel, but you do not necessarily have to travel. They have programs and events online. I think some of their programs are webinars, and I believe that some of our city staff have already started participating and seeing some of those things. I was just trying to bring it up so that we can be members, because then we are in the room being able to get the things that we need, because if we're not in a room and present, you don't get what's coming to you. You have to be able to be loud to get fed. And I am just looking at all of the cities that have been surrounding us that have been able to get some of that governmental money back. And not everybody goes to the national conferences with that. And typically, TML also has people that they recommend from our board to be board members, and that is covered. So it doesn't necessarily require that you have to travel to DC or travel to the conference. It's just one of those where it's on a national level where they offer training and resources like TML, but more so that for your national delegation, and that's how, and being in the room and seeing them work at the summit when I went with some of the people that are from some of these other cities surrounding us that are NLC members, and talking with the state reps and the senators, they seem to be making some headway because they're now down in the throes with them, and they're seeing what's coming through, and so they end up getting those funding. And we always talk about grant money. Well, this is one way for us to also be able to get some grant money to bring back. Our taxpayers will get some of their money back by being that. It may not be the first year that we're in there, but we have to start somewhere, just like we started going to ICSC to try to make headway in bringing business here. This is a start for us to get some of our taxpayer dollars back to our city for our infrastructure projects so that our residents benefit from that. That is kind of why, but it's not just large cities. There are small cities. As they say, there are villages. These are smaller cities than we are, and you pay based on your city and the size. And everyone that I've talked to, and I can get people to contact, I can even probably see if I can get our representative who lives in Tampa, Florida, Ebony. She was at TML conference. I did speak with her, and but she had issues, and when I talked to her, she was going back to Tampa. But I think it's beneficial for us as a city to be a part of something where we can have some kind of leeway or headway on the national level. Yes, I believe being local and dealing with our state, but some of that funding doesn't just come from the state, it comes from the federal government, and I think it helps us get back what we sent up there, and that's why. So there's not just large cities in this. It's a ton of cities, and I know that Texas was one of the 11 states that founded this organization 100 years ago because they realized that you needed somebody in the throes of DC to be able to get what you need for your state and for your city.
Councilmember Davis.
Interesting stuff. Well, part of me agrees with the mayor on the budget process and our tax rate. But at the end of the day, if you look at Schertz historically, we tend to under budget based on our revenues that we bring in. And based on that, you know, $4 to $5 grand in a membership fee for an organization really is not that bad. What intrigues me about it is as Councilwoman Hayward said, the avenues or potential for grant opportunities. We've been pretty successful at the state level getting some grants. Not convinced we've been all that successful at the federal level or other levels beyond the state of Texas. And if putting out $4,000 to $5,000 for a membership gets us in a swim lane where we can start exploring some other grants, I don't think that would necessarily a bad endeavor to look at. We do have some transportation issues in here. You know, you look at the 1518 project, and TxDOT's doing it, but the only reason TxDOT's doing it, let's be blunt, is because the city ponied up a lot of money. And we have other road projects like maybe the expansion of 3009, the extension of 3009, and a few others that if we can convince somebody else to grant us some seed money, that in turn takes the burden off of our residents. We're also a fast-growing community, and we've got other things that we probably need to start looking at going down the line. And again, grants, federal grants might be very beneficial to look at that. Alternative transportation, where while I certainly support a light rail, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But we might have to look at a mass transit option of some sort, whether that's partnering with VIA or creating our own. And looking at their website, there are other opportunities for economic revitalization. And you know we've been putting a lot of our taxpayer dollars now looking at things like Main Street and the 78 corridor and the center part of Schertz for redevelopment. So exploring potential grants for that area, I don't think would be a bad thing and would ultimately save us some money, as well as probably addressing the biggest concern that we have, and that's the center part of Schertz being in a floodplain. You know, maybe we do need to talk to some of these other cities to find out how they went down that path and what they did to help mitigate flooding concerns, so that we can get ahead of that curve. You know, I would rather put in the effort and spend a little bit of seed money now to see if we can get some grants or other assistance to figure out how to prevent a problem with our floodplain issues versus how do we redevelop the whole center part of Schertz that floods out just because we have no plan. So I don't think it'd be a bad idea, to be honest with you.
Any other comments, council? I just want to make sure that council understands. I don't think it is a bad idea at this point. I just don't know whether or not we are fully committed into hitting our local agencies to help us. I mean, how long did it take for the MPO to provide assistance in some of the fundings, or even be part of the board, the voting board, so that we can get the attention that's needed on this side in smaller cities? You know, especially when we're one of the biggest cities in San Antonio, surrounding San Antonio, yet we're overlooked in so many different ways. Now, when we're up there, you're looking at cities like Chicago, LA, San Francisco. You know, so I want to make sure that we're not lost and we're not forgotten, and our voice is just as equally heard as all the other big cities. That's why I think it should be a long-term issue, not just a 1 year, here we go. We have to make a long-term commitment because things are not going to happen within the first year or second year. It's a long-term commitment, and that's what I want to make sure that we have that commitment from this council, that when we become part of this National League of Cities, that we are in it for the long term to see how it can help us. And like you said, Councilmember Davis, just one item that they fund for us more than pays for itself. It does. But can we get that one item? Right. Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, as the discussion moves on, and I'm looking at their website here too, and the different advocacy committees that they have. There's a lot of stuff there that I am sure that we can gain quality, if nothing else, first year information and tools to move forward in the future there. Again, I was not familiar with this organization, yeah, but if we do have anybody that's currently a member that can, give us a little feedback on, that would certainly be nice as well. But I'm not against, if it's $4,000 or $5,000, something like that, that's not against that.
Councilmember Macaluso.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Councilman Brown in terms of speaking with the other communities that are members, just to see what their experience has been, to see if they feel like it was a good investment, and kind of get what their comments are, and use that in that consideration, because they have over 2,500 member cities, I believe I saw. What percentage of those cities have felt that they were able to receive a grant with the help of this organization? Is it 4 cities in a year? I mean, is it something that actually plays out? I mean, it's not a lot of money. So if the other cities feel like they have some kind of benefit from it, then I think it'd be potentially a good idea. But I just know that we get asked to join a lot of different organizations and advocacy groups, and I just don't know how many of those are really worth it and how many aren't. So that's my feeling.
Councilmember Hayward.
I can tell you that the NLC has a fondness for Texas, because I think Texas was one of the 11 cities that founded it 100 years ago. They love Texas, and they always try to find a way to be in Texas when they can. I mean, our regional delegation, our regional representative, Ebony, was at the TML conference the NLC president was planning to be there, but something came up that he couldn't be there. So anytime we have events, they show up and they believe in trying to help Texas. So I just want y'all to know that. And if we don't start if we keep saying 1 or 2 years, it's one of those where it's like, when do you start? If you wait a year from now, you're a year behind. So when do you make the decision to do that? Because every year if you put it off and go, well, it's going to take us some time before we get there in these other cities, and they may play a bigger role because they're larger cities, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not in the room, and sitting at the table, you don't even get the opportunity. So you got to start being in the room to get the opportunity. And I'm just looking at being in the room to get the opportunity so that we can do this, and maybe 3, 4 years down the road, we're getting some revenue back, some tax or some grant money back, then it's paid for itself. And if they are looking at giving you grants that will be better for your city, so they don't try to just throw a bunch of grants at you. They're specific in what our needs are to give us those leads to be able to do that. And if you need assistance with trying to get the grant, they help you. They put you in the room with people you need to be put in the room with. And that's just kind of where I think, I get that you want to hear from other cities. That's fine. I can get you connections. But I think the Scott's here, he's been with Live Oak, and they were National League of Cities, so he can probably give a little bit of some leeway on it being part of that when he was the city manager, if he doesn't mind, if he could.
Well, with that, if you can get with Live Oak and New Braunfels to provide the council some information on how they have helped their cities, I think, we will open it up for discussion when that information is provided. And certainly, council, if you want to reach out to these 2 cities, please do so that you can get any of your questions answered. With that, we'll move on to our item number 2. All right, workshop on publication of employee compensation. Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, this is not necessarily about the publication of employee compensation. The question I asked the city staff was, we've been through multiple comm studies, and it seems to me that every time we do a comm study, the input that we get back from whoever we contract out, and it's been 3 different companies now for a comm study, is we're behind the power curve, and we need to address compensation. At the end of the day, and I made this comment to our city manager, at the end of the day, I could probably take any position in the city, and I will, just staying within the state of Texas and maybe even our local area, I will find you a city that's bigger than us that is paying that person more, a city that is bigger than us that's paying them less, a city that's smaller than us that's paying that position more, and a city that's smaller than us that's paying it less. So that every time we do a comp study and we're coming back with this, we're behind the power curve, we need to go down this path. To me, I'm not quite sure we're on the right path. It seems like it's almost like it's always let's keep up with the Joneses, and it's a never-ending battle. To me, at the end of the day, the question comes down to, are we paying our employees a fair compensation? We have features that we do that other cities don't do. Other cities have features that we don't provide. And to me, to get a better understanding of it, what I asked for was, can we get a picture of what we're paying our staff? Can I get a list of the employees, what their job title is, how long they've been in the city? Because that's one of the factors that you probably need to look at. If we're paying someone the same amount of money that we paid them when they started 10 years ago, that's probably not a very motivational reason for them to stay in a city employee. So when did they start? What is their job title? What is their base pay? What do they earn in overtime? And then what do we pay in other items, so that we can get a picture of the true total compensation of our city staff. And I think having that information will give us more understanding as we go forward looking at changes in our compensation model for our employees. And then part of it is also just a matter of transparency. You can go online right now You know, so there are some concerns about, well, we're taking someone's pay and we're putting it out there. I mean, these are municipal tax dollars that are open to open records requests and everything else anyway. There's at least 5 websites that I have found that if you go out to, you can type in the city of Schertz and you can type in an employee's name or type in a job function, and it gives you a listing of our city employees and their compensation. As a matter of fact, when I showed that to the city manager, one of his initial responses was, that doesn't look correct. So there's some misinformation out there. I would rather see the actual information. And as you can see in the agenda that we had here, there's a link to the city of San Antonio. San Antonio publishes every year their entire expenditures on city payroll, providing that same kind of information. The employee, what their job title or job function is, how long they've been in the position, and those various aspects of compensation to get the total picture. I think it's invaluable for the council to have that information. And I'm okay personally with it being on the city website, because I also think it's a matter of transparency for the public. If we're going to go back to the public and say, we want to raise your taxes, we want to turn around and set a tax rate based on compensation, then I think they have a right to know where their money goes. Just like we publish other budget items out there that says we spent X number of dollars on a road project or a paving project or building a new building. So that was the reason for that entry.
Council. Councilmember Brown.
As long as we don't get into the business of doing our own compensation studies, you know, but having that information available, I think it is very good. Personally, as I think about it, you know, I'd hate to have names associated with every position out there, but have, you know, road worker 1, road worker 2, you know, with their different steps and whatnot, have that available, just like they do a military pay raise or pay scales. You know, relatively easy to see and get through, and have it available for the public as well as us. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Mr. Williams.
Just to be clear, what is being requested is a listing of every employee and what that employee makes and all the associated.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not really crazy about the names being associated with that. I think that may be going too deep. I realize San Antonio did it, but we're not San Antonio.
So is there any opposition to leaving the name out, or just, is there a way of just,
Me personally, I don't see what the difference is. I mean, it's public tax dollars. It's public tax dollars, and there is a discussion point where, yeah, you can say you know, some positions are unique. If we put down police chief, we kind of know who we're talking about. If we put down EDC director, we know who we're talking about. If we're talking about waste worker 1, we're kind of not, because you could be a brand new waste worker, and you could be a waste worker that's been in there for 10 years, waste worker 1. And then the question that I would develop from that is, do we really have a good progression scale? You know, we just turned around and modified the public safety scale so that they're stepping through that process the longer they're in the system. Don't necessarily do that for any of the general services positions. So yeah, in theory, without looking at it, without knowing it, you could have a waste worker 1 who's been there for 10 years getting paid not much more than a waste worker 1 who's been here for a year or 2. So yeah, I think I do like the San Antonio model. I do like the fact that it's listing all the information and you can make an informed decision from it.
Councilmember Brown.
I don't want to argue or get too deep into it, but, you know, the waste worker 1 that's been there for 10 years, that's very happy and comfortable in his position, does he necessarily need to have a move-up plan? You know, that's getting down to the supervisor level and the division chiefs and whatnot for them to do their jobs. But just from a fiscal standpoint, if I know what waste worker 1 is paid and then what their steps are along the way, that's a good thing. Again, I don't need to know that, Tim Brown or Mark Davis or Michelle Watson was there for 10 years in that spot, so.
Any other comments? Mr. Williams?
So I'm kind of hearing two different opinions as far as from staff direction. Is it to, I mean, we could take this a couple of different ways. We could produce the information, disseminate it to council. We could also produce the information and disseminate it to council and publish it on the webpage. Is that, I mean, those are two potential courses, just throwing that out there. Maybe if I could poll council or get some feedback on how to proceed.
I'm okay with posting it. I'm okay with posting it.
Okay?
So am I, but just not with names.
I like the transparency, full transparency.
Councilmember Macaluso?
I'm comfortable with it being inclusive in our budget posting that we do annually. I don't know if it needs to be its own separate link right there on the webpage, but I think it should be inclusive in the budget process.
Well, just to be clear, we don't publish with the names and such during the process, the budget process.
And why not?
I'm sorry?
And why not?
It's just not something we've done. We published the pay tables, and when we did the compensation study, we published the positions, but we didn't necessarily put people's names with it.
Yeah, I'm just saying if that's what the desire is of others, I could see it maybe being inclusive in that, at that period of time. I just don't know if we need a link right there on the Schertz website saying here's, employee pay.
Mayor Pro Tem Westbrook?
Yes, Mayor. So from a personal standpoint and having my information out there on the web, because I do work for the city of San Antonio, it's sort of unnerving. It's not ideal. I probably wouldn't promote it from a personal standpoint. However, because in the situation I am in now, from the outside looking in, it is taxpayer dollars, like Councilmember Davis said. It is open. It is available through open records request. So now it's just a matter of how easy do we make the information in case somebody wants to look at it. That's how do we want to make them jump through hoops a little bit, open records request, or do we make it easy and post it online? For the link that, for the city of San Antonio, my name is on there. I'm number 68. I guess I need to work a little bit harder.
Line number 68.
Yeah, line number 68. So personally, I would say no, but I guess from a city council perspective, it's open records request. It's information that's available to individuals if they so choose. I just don't know from the city manager are there a lot of requests for this type of information on a yearly basis, annual basis, or I mean, we're gonna cause some consternation for how many requests a year? 4, 5, 10, 20? I don't know.
We do get requests periodically. Jessica could probably give you a better number, but I don't think it's an onerous amount. Go ahead, Jessica.
We do get several per year. Generally not as comprehensive as what we're considering here. Normally we'll get a request for gross wages, either annual salary or gross wages. Usually we don't get any kind of request for fringe or additional benefits in terms of total compensation. Like I said, usually they're looking for annual or gross, but not broken out necessarily in the same way that, say, San Antonio does their information.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
I can go either way, to be honest with you, but I'm in favor of transparency from a administrative standpoint.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hayward?
I have to agree with Councilmember Brown. I don't think we need names out there. I just don't think we need names. What people make based on their title, I think is fine, but putting names, I don't think that's a good idea.
Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, again, just for the record, it's already out there by name. I can gladly send the members of the council link to like 5 different websites that list the year and the individual's name and their total compensation. One of the concerns I have is it actually accurate? Or are they posting something that when they got some data from some point, from somewhere, it's not exactly fully transparent or fully accurate? And you know, my take on it is, you know, I think we owe it to our residents to be transparent with what we do with their dollars. So, I mean, the data's already out there, by name, on at least 5 different sites that I've seen. I would rather point people to the city of Schertz with authoritative, validated data versus somebody else's work or webpage that may be skewed or not exactly fully accurate.
No, I tend to agree with Councilmember Davis. You know, the information's out there. They just don't have to dig for it if we put it out. I mean, it's easily available, is what he's indicating here. And based on the council's decision, full transparency is what this council wants, is deciding to go forward, is to provide the information for our constituents to see exactly what the staff is being compensated for.
So just to be clear, staff will proceed putting together on an annual basis at the end of the fiscal year a compensation report similar to San Antonio's. It won't be exactly like it because there are some subtle differences and we have some limitations because we are pulling data from various systems and kind of compiling various reports and compiling it together. So we will get it as close as we can, but it won't be exactly like that. But it'll be similar to, we will compile it, distribute it to the council, and we will post it on the webpage. And Mayor, can I ask one question?
Yes.
Just really
Yes,
quickly
please.
before we wrap up. Just to be clear on the National League of Cities membership, was it the consensus to come back and bring it back to another workshop or to have it as an agenda item or join now? And I'm sorry, I'm unclear on how to proceed.
I believe Councilmember Hayward was going to get information from Live Oak and New Braunfels and share with the rest of the council, and then we'll bring it back.
Okay, will do.
Now, one question about the posting. Are we looking at the end of the fiscal year to post? I would suggest that we put it towards August before we make our final budget. What
Well,
is council's decision on that?
The cities I've seen that do it, Austin and San Antonio, do it at the end of the fiscal year because that's a logical cutoff point, and that's when you begin your budget, October 1st. So you can, there's a comparison between what their budgeted salary was and how much they earned. If somebody was hired in March, it shows the partial amount they were paid for that year compared to what the budgeted salary was. It's a lot cleaner to do it September 30 of each year.
I understand that, but this council's making budget decisions, tax rate decisions, and having our constituents know exactly what we're addressing will provide more transparency is the way I'm looking at it. But Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with posting it at the end of the fiscal year going forward, but I don't want to wait until next August, September, October, November to get the first look at it. I mean, we just went through a budget process and the driving whole process was employee compensation. And again, I agree, there's some things that you guys need to work out and get on there, but I think we could get at least a baseline posted within the next 2 months or so.
Absolutely. We can get 23 done, and then we just finished up 24. I can't imagine it's going to take us too long. Jessica's already done a little bit of work on this to see what it would take to pull it together. The first time you do it, it takes a long time, right? Because you're designing it. Second time's a little easier, third time's a little easier. Right. I can't imagine it's going to take us a significant amount of time, so.
All right. Any other comments, questions? It's 5:41. We'll stand adjourned. We'll meet in next 19 minutes. Thanks.
All right, very good.